Back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. Well, Tim, I was out to camp on Thursday, and my God, was it boring. At least now, starting on Friday, as we're recording this podcast, this is the Viking Update show on TalkNorth.com, you actually have real players to watch. You have players who matter. You have real injury updates. We have some actual news after a long and sometimes intriguing, sometimes boring offseason. Now it gets real.
Well, and I've said this before, but I think this year the subtle changes that the Vikings made in training camp were saving fans from themselves. They have eliminated fans in the morning walkthrough, which is about as boring as football can get, and they eliminated fans from seeing, well, and I think they did this last year too. They didn't start allowing fans until the veterans reported. So that starts today. The last few days have been fairly boring. It's basically just kind of walk through, review sort of things. It'll really ramp up on Monday when they get pads on.
What are you going to look for at camp? What intrigues you the most?
Well, to me, one of the keys to the season is going to be how does Kevin Stefanski work with Gary Kubiak, and how does that look on the field? I personally really still like the drafting of Garrett Bradbury. I think he fits what they want to do with this offense, having athletic guys on the offensive line that can get side to side and kind of cut down players. Now, Mike Zimmer brought up a good point, I think it was on Tuesday at the opening, that you're not even going to see the offensive linemen cutting defensive linemen and linebackers in the outside zone running scheme in training camp because, they want to preserve their players. They don't want any injuries to happen that way. But, how does this running game look with the zone scheme, with the new players on the offensive line, and with Dalvin Cook fitting his skills? I think it fits Cook's skills great because I think he's a really good one-cut runner. If he can have some time to go move toward the sideline laterally and find the hole that he wants to hit, I think that will really bode well for him. So to me, that's where it starts. How does Stefanski and Kubiak work together?
Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating, and it's gonna be really hard to judge that during camp because Stefanski's a nice guy, Kubiak's a nice guy who I've heard really wants to stay out of the spotlight and let Kevin work. So it's probably going to work fine until they have a crisis in the season. Then we'll see.
Yeah, and to me, I think it works really well in this fact. There aren't a lot of coordinators out there that would have been hired in January full-time like Stefanski was, and then a couple weeks later, oh, by the way, we know that you're pretty new. We're going to bring in this guy who's got several Super Bowls as a player and as a coach, and he's going to be the behind-the-scenes guy. I think a lot of younger first-time coordinators may have been intimidated by that, but Stefanski is such a laid-back guy. I think that he can view it for what it is, which is, you don't have a ton of experience as a coordinator. We like what you've done as a position coach in the past. Here's somebody that can help you out, and here's some new ideas and some new philosophies on how to set up certain plays. I think that part is going to be fine. It's just a matter of how does the new scheme come together on the field when, frankly, they can do it all they want against their own defense. But when you're going up against a defense that you're not sure exactly what it's going to bring, you're not super familiar with it, and you have a rookie center making the line calls, how does all that come together? That's going to be one of the keys to the season.
Sadly, the most newsy aspect of training camp is almost always revolves around injuries, because you don't really know how an offense is going to come together, or how an offensive line is going to come together, or how coaches are going to work together until you see them under pressure. But injuries matter. Let's start there. Actually, before we get the injury updates and what you think of them, let's thank Twill and the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com, your Peter Millar Crown Shop.
Jim usually doesn't like to shop for clothes. I don't like it when he shops for clothes either, because he used to buy stuff I'd want to throw out. That's why I'm so glad he's found Twill in the Edina Galleria. He likes shopping there because of the comfortable environment and the friendly staff. He finds clothes that actually fit him properly and are high-quality brands that will look great for years, whether he's golfing or working. Our favorites so far are Peter Millar, Johnny O, and Barber. We spend our money at Twill because we love the clothes and we love the no-pressure shopping. Drop by Twill in the Edina Galleria for the best shopping experience and best clothes you'll find in the Twin Cities.
And with the injuries, let's start with Mike Hughes, who could be a big key for this team.
Yeah, that's going to be, I think, the biggest one on this list. Hughes is starting camp on the physically unable to perform, which is pretty much expected. I mean, they want to sort of ease him in. I think that probably in a couple weeks that they'll start to get him a little bit of action on the field. He's looked pretty good in the running that he's done. He's had a knee brace on when running off to the side. And so I think they're optimistic that he'll be ready fairly soon. David Morgan also there. He had off-season surgery, and that one I think is a little more uncertain. How long is it until he's out there? Brandon Zylstra participated in a decent amount of OTAs and minicamp, and then toward the end was held out. I don't think that's serious. I've seen him working out on the field, and he doesn't look like he's going to be too long before he's back in action, and he really needs to be, because that's going to be a crowded position, and he needs to get out there and work and earn his spot. Non-football injury list. This one is pretty serious. Tayshawn Bauer, Mike Zimmer announced today, had torn his Achilles, and that I think that happened before their off-season stuff, their OTAs even happened. I think this was probably a February type injury, because he's been out the whole spring as well. My guess would be, hey, if that's an Achilles, he's probably done for the year, goes on injured reserve, and then they kind of hope that they can work with him throughout the end of the season and get him back on board. But they're fairly deep on the defensive line, so from a how is this going to affect their defense during the season? I don't think it's going to have a huge impact, but it's a blow for a guy that was kind of a roster fringe guy, had made the team before, and they could have used him as a rotational guy. So that one's going to be probably won't see him at all this season. Shamar Stephan is also on the non-football injury list, and that one sounds like he should be back fairly soon. Zimmer seemed pretty optimistic with that.
Interesting. And do they have enough defensive line depth to survive these kinds of incidents?
Yeah, I absolutely think they do. From defensive end standpoint, they've got three very good ones with Danielle Hunter, Everson Griffin, and Stephen Weatherly. All three of those could be starters if one is hurt for a couple weeks here and there. So I don't think that's going to be a big deal. I think they've got a lot of depth at defensive tackle, but most of it's fairly unproven. So, behind Shamar Stephan as their three technique guy, you have guys like Jalen Holmes. Jaleel Johnson's really more of a nose tackle. Hercules Mataafa, who started last off season as a linebacker before he got hurt, and his season was done before it ever started. And then the drafting of Armin Watts, I talked to him today, and it seems like he feels like he's mostly a three technique guy. So I think it's going to be, behind Stephan, basically Jalen Holmes, Mataafa, and then Armin Watts battling. So they've got depth, but a lot of it is fairly unproven. Holmes got a little bit of action last year. Jaleel Johnson got some more than Holmes. And so I think probably nose tackle, they're feeling pretty good about their depth behind Linval Joseph. Three technique still has something to show in their young careers.
All right, let's get to a meaty topic. How does Cousins acclimate to the new offense? Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you that you can use the promo code TALKNORTH, one word, to get 15% off the entire youth collection at sotastick.com. It's SOTA stick.com. They have tons of Vikings and Vikings-related apparel. Viking-themed apparel is probably the right way to put it. They have cool stuff that, about John Randall, Randy Moss, the Green Bay, Randy Moss celebration. They just have all kinds of stuff. So check them out, sotastick.com. And again, 15% off their entire youth collection when spending $40 or more. Use the code YOUTH15 for that. So use Talk North if you want free shipping. Use 15% off their youth collection with a purchase of $40 or more when using the code YOUTH15, YOUTH15. And thanks to SotaStick for sponsoring the program. All right, how does Cousins acclimate to this offense?
Well, I think he's really one of the reasons that they were very interested in Kubiak when he became available, because he ran a similar system in Denver and with the Houston Texans that Cousins ran in his first couple of years in the league with Kyle Shanahan as his offensive coordinator with the Redskins. So I think there's a lot of carryover. Some of the terminology is a little bit different. Stefanski has added some things that he has become accustomed to from his years here with the Vikings. So I think that Cousins, of everyone, should feel the most comfortable with this offense. The interesting thing to me, too, is going to be how does Cousins work with a rookie center and the line calls. Now, I think it's going to be a lot to ask for a rookie, whether he's a first-round pick or not, for Garrett Bradbury to come in here and make line calls against defenses that he probably hasn't seen much in his college career. And I think ultimately that Cousins will have the opportunity to overrule him on some protection calls. But Bradbury said earlier this week, his biggest thing is he wants to be quick with the calls and make it decisive so that everybody can get it down the line. That's going to be a challenge for a guy who doesn't have that sort of experience.
Absolutely. I think in camp, the fun things to watch are like wide receivers, because you can actually see them displaying skills that should transfer into real situations, and they're trying to beat good quarterbacks, and it's also the feistiest competition in a lot of cases. So as you look at the number 3 wide receiver position, who should we be watching in this camp, and who do you think has the edge?
I think the most interesting thing for fans is number one, I think it's much easier to judge wide receivers than a lot of other positions in camp, because you still see the routes they're running, you still see what kind of hands they have, you see the timing between the quarterback and the receiver. So I think that's a great position for fans to watch, especially this year. The key thing is, right now, I believe the Vikings are really sending a message to Laquan Treadwell. And I say that because I see Chad Beebe and Jordan Taylor getting more reps with the starters when they need 3 receivers in the game or in practices than Treadwell. To me, it's really a make or break camp for Treadwell. If he doesn't have a good camp, I could easily see them cutting him. So that is one to watch. Beebe is a fun guy to watch because he's one of these shorter, quicker striding kind of guys who I think is gonna cause some teams some problems with underneath routes. Health has been a problem for him. Taylor is more of your outside receiver. He's 6'5". He's one of the tallest receivers the Vikings have had. So not really a deep burner. He's not a Randy Moss deep burner. If they're looking for a guy with speed, that's Jeff Badette, who was basically on their practice squad last year. And then their 7th-round picks, Dylan Mitchell seems to be more of the deep threat among those two, and Olabisi Johnson seems to be more of the underneath, a little bit finer route runner. So there's a lot of options for them to choose from. I think right now, though, obviously Thielen, Diggs are in. Beebe, I think, is in. Jordan Taylor probably has a really good chance to be in. So that's 4 guys right there. Typically, you're keeping 6. So now it's Treadwell, Badette, the 2 7th-round picks, all battling for a couple of positions.
You didn't mention Zylstra. What's his future?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Zylstra, I think, well, number one, he needs to get on the field and continue to prove it. And injuries have been a little bit of a problem for him. They were in the spring, and now he's starting on the PUP list, so that's not great for him. I think he is one of those reliable receivers who is going to have to show some particular quality that makes them go, oh, we got to keep this guy. Right now, I don't think it's speed, and I don't think that's necessarily